Hey guys, and welcome back to the Intelligence Economy. I'm your host, Samvi Sharma, and I'm delighted to introduce my new guest and my first guest, Fari Pirouz.
This episode is proudly sponsored by Innovating Technologies, helping enterprises transform through AI, global capability centers, digital infrastructure, and intelligent business operations.
So thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate it. So guys, let me give you a quick background on Fari. So I'm going to brag a little bit about you, so don't be alarmed. So he actually started his career working in the Royal Navy in a submarine for 11 years, was it?
Yeah, thereabouts. Yeah,
That is a killer opening line. So can you tell me a little bit about how it was?
I think it's really interesting because I lived and worked inside a machine, and so a machine and technology from the inside as a part of like a human machine interface, and that's what it is. It's one big for days on end. And now I get the opportunity to work and understand machines from the outside.
Yeah, so it kind of did link into you working eventually back in telecoms. And then you went on to lead a £250 million government programme at BT. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, so early doors was rolling out defence telcos across the UK.
So would you say there are some similarities?
Yeah, I think so. There's a lot of similarities between sound and telco. So light, the same laws, same type of physics.
Yeah, and then spent over a decade at Vodafone, rising as a senior IT leader, and now you're at Pegasystems as a senior director as well. So can you tell me a little bit about what you're doing at Pegasystems right now?
So really honoured and humbled to work at Pegasystems. We really are. We use like Pega AI, and I know AI is the buzzword, but we use Pega AI to optimize and automate workflow and decisions within an organization to get work done. And part of my role is to do that within telecoms and to help both our internal teams, our clients, get the best use of AI and to get work done and to drive value for them and outcomes for them.
Brilliant, yeah. So for our topic today, we're going to be discussing token economics. It's quite a big topic right now. I feel like there's a lot of discussion around it, and Fari came up with this topic, so I thought that's such a great idea. So can you explain a little bit for my listeners who don't completely understand what token economics actually is?
Sure. So first of all, everyone's well aware of LLMs, the explosion of AI in the last couple of years. It's become synonymous with almost getting things done and how organizations are changing. When you look at the background of how that model works, each of these LLMs, those large language models, or even small language models that you've got today, utilize a token. And a token is a proximity for a word or an exchange or an action getting done. And that each of those tokens drives a cost. So today, every time someone uses a large language model or uses AI within their workplace or even at home, it drives you so many costs, so much tokens, so much usage. And so the question has gone from, in companies and in the wider stance, is not how much tokens I use or how little tokens I use. It's what's the value of that token, because it's become a proxy for cost.
Yeah, so I couldn't really explain that any better myself. So is this actually a finance problem, or is it more of a governance mess wearing a cost story as a disguise?
Is it? So that's a good question. And I think sort of some of the answer is in your question, in the sense that if you look back a couple of years ago, everyone was about adoption, how much could they use it. In fact, some people were bragging how much they could utilize or expend their tokens. Shift forward today, and the problem is come home to roost with the CFO almost, or certainly members in finance getting the bill and having a bit of a shock because it's a variable cost. It's not a fixed cost, and that adoption has spread throughout the organization. It's not an IT problem, or it's an organization-wide problem. People are using LLMs outside the company for their own internal purposes and inside the company. And that bill had to come about. So the problem is really a governance problem, because it's not what you're spending, it's why and how you're spending it, and for what's the value and the outcome you're driving it. And that's the challenge.
Yeah, so let's make that concrete. And should we discuss an example, a real example? Recently I heard about Uber blowing through their entire AI budget in 4 months.
Yeah, that's a good point. Uber, if you look it up today, came up this year in the first quarter and already had spent their allocated or forecast budget for all their tokens.
Yeah.
So that was a really a challenge. But the other underlining challenge is the further comment is that they couldn't see the value being driven. They hadn't shipped things. They hadn't shipped any code or any software. They couldn't see the difference it was making to the customer experience. So not only was the problem of spending the money, and more than they were blindsided by the invoice almost, but they didn't see the value or the benefit from it.
So, do you think using all those tokens in 4 months was the right move? Or is it really about what outcomes they achieved with them?
I think it's like any tool. Just using the tool for the tool's sake is not going to do you for any benefit. It might be highly creative, but what you've got to do is think about with the outcome in mind and how much value that's going to drive that. So in some cases, I think it's highly creative, but really businesses are all about outcomes. Businesses are all about value and generating revenue and shareholder returns. And so that's where the main focus should have been.
So, what would you say is kind of the actual fix for it? In terms of, so what should businesses actually be doing to get more value from their tokens and avoid spending money without getting the results they need?
So how would we fix that?
So I think it's optimizing the right things. So I think first of all, it's considering whether it's the right AI for the right time for the right purpose. And they've just substituted AI, but actually that hasn't changed from things like efficiency, effectiveness, and efficacy. In other words, using the right tool at the right time. So that's number one. I think number two, you've got to determine value from AI on, how much value you got per intelligence, how much value you got per token, what's that driving, and how did you get that? And then I think the third thing to scale it's all around process and looking at, does this add value to that process? Does this drive the outcome? Is it scalable? And can I expand on that? And can you govern it, audit, repeat it, and track back and forth to understand what mistakes you made and learn from it? Without that, you can't scale. It's really difficult. And you come across problems that are not fixed, like the unfixed costs that you get from the tokenization.
And what does that actually look like when a company wants to automate a whole process, not just one task? What would you say the process is, like step by step?
So good question. I think, first of all, it's considering what the design of the process is and not bolting on the AI afterwards or bolting on the governance afterwards. What you've got to think about is what is the outcomes you're trying to achieve. How much can you reuse it? How much can you get and squeeze and make sure that the faster time to market and it differentiates you as a customer? And to do that, one of the key things is to ensure that it's not always wise to bolt on or even build your own AI. At that point in time, it's actually what you've got to think of is how you optimize and how you orchestrate, because there's going to be lots of different agents, got to be lots of different types of models, whether they're large or small, and different types of AI. You've got classical or LLMs. And from that basis, you've got to understand how you organize them to get you to that outcome. But it's got to be repeatable. It's got to be scalable. So for me, it's all about the design or design time versus the runtime.
Yeah, so thank you for that. I'm going to move on to a different question that really interests me. So, say tomorrow, given that the biggest AI models are based in the US such as Anthropic and OpenAI, and both are widely used in the UK. So, say tomorrow Trump decides, I'm going to add a tariff on these. Essentially, anyone outside the US wanting to use these models would have to pay more. What does that mean for the UK? Do you think the UK is lacking AI sovereignty in that sense? Because obviously, India right now has models such as Sarvam, and China has their new models such as Kimi. So they have ways and would be better protected if, say, something like this were to happen. But the UK doesn't seem to have that same option. How would the UK deal with that situation? And do you think this dependence is a genuine issue?
I think everything needs context. So whether it's a tariff or a pricing issue, I probably think it's more a consideration than a policy issue, because in isolation, that is fine, but actually everything is stacked in a value chain. So the model is one thing, or the LLM is one thing. The next thing is the agent. What does the agent say? Is the agent sovereign? So you might have the model that's sovereign, but the agent that uses it might not necessarily be sovereign. Then you take it a further step down. And what about the infrastructure? So we're saying, is the cloud sovereign? Is the cloud in the UK, or is the cloud based somewhere else? And then you take it further, one step further, is where the cloud and the data centers, are the chips sovereign? So everyone talks about NVIDIA chips, and could they have? So that's number one, is understanding the whole ecosystem rather than one component. And I think then you look at the next part of that puzzle is, where is the value and why would you do it? So would you treat everything as a nail and everything's in a hammer? In other words, we just wrap policy all around everything, or we just wrap a tariff around everything. It's unlikely that would happen. So you then got to have choice. And I think when you make that choice, you make an informed choice. What things need to be sovereign and why? So it tends to work around governance, government, and focus on there. And the question is, does that need to be in that model? Does it need to be there in the first place? And what's your intellectual property? What's your IP? And I think then the final bit is cost. So sovereignty comes with a cost. Who pays that cost? Governments might want to pay for that cost. Other companies might not want to pay for that cost. So you can't treat it with everyone with the same cost.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to go a little bit off topic here, but so I've seen earlier that you had been to an event with DTW Ignite, I think it was. And yeah, so can you tell me a little bit about how it was related to token economics? I can see the badge as well. Yes.
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, so we, as an organization, we look at no tokens. So what we say about that is, because what we do is we orchestrate that when what is called deterministic and runtime, what we say is that you don't want to use lots of AI and probabilistic at that time. You want certainty, you want repeatability. You don't want to build a road every time you go to the shops. I want that road, I know where it's going, I know what the outcome is, I know how to get there. So what we're saying is that is deterministic. In terms of the TM Forum, that's what we were showing. We were showing people how to take AI and drive value rapidly at pace, and show them how the AI can be both deterministic and probabilistic. So in probabilistic, you can use creative design time capabilities, but in deterministic, you use the AI that gives you a set outcome, and hence the no tokens. And so we were working with lots of companies and lots of clients driving innovation in telco speak.
Were you one of the only people to say no tokens?
Yes, I believe I believe we were the only ones. Most people were talking about how they scale tokens, how much different types of tokens there were, because obviously you've got reasoning tokens and they're more expensive. So yes, we were quite proud of that.
So as these AI models become more powerful, what should people actually be focusing on?
I think just as a quick thing, it's certainly everyone who uses tokens have got to think about really the value and the outcome. It's just a tool, and everything's got to be all about scale. and execution rather than the creativity is brilliant. And I think these models and these types of AI have got a massive future. I mean, the next step will be probably looking attaching an AI or a model LLM into a quantum computer and seeing how far that will go. So absolutely amazing.
So, what do you think about us as regular people using AI? Because, to be honest, if you're not using AI properly, you could be wasting tokens. Sometimes people even start conversations with ChatGPT by saying, "Hi, how are you?" or trying to get to know it. But it is still an AI model at the end of the day. Do you think using tokens in that way affects the overall cost, or does it not really make much of a difference?
So one of the things I would say is that a lot of the AI companies invested a hell of a lot of money in billions of money and billions of dollars and pounds, and they've got to get that money back.
Yeah.
So in some way, they're encouraging everyone, and the models can be very optimistic, very upbeat, and when you engage with them, they say what a fantastic idea it is. Because remember, they're trying to sell and sell you more tokens for you to utilize. So that's number one. I think number two, I think people will change, and I think roles and organizations will change from people that used to do things to people auditing, assuring, less about prompting, and that will go forward. So jobs will change, and they'll become more astute and more smart at how they utilize those tools. I think we're just at the infancy now.
I think that's a great place to wrap up. Fari, thank you so much for joining me and sharing your insights on token economics and the future of AI. Stay tuned, guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode. We'll be back for another episode with a new guest as well then. And thank you for listening.